if UPSC prelims was only about knowledge, the toppers would score somewhere around 130 plus, 150 plus, or 180 plus. But we all know that even the top rankers score somewhere between 90 to 120. Now, what is the reason for this? See, you'll have to understand that UPSC doesn't reward what you know. It basically rewards what you can eliminate. Yes, you heard it right. I'm using the word elimination. देखिए, एक time था, there was a time when many of the toppers, they advised using the elimination technique. But later, people thought कि भाई elimination जो है, it is based upon the guesswork. It is based upon the intuition. So the way in which people looked at this particular technique, it was reduced. The importance of the elimination technique was reduced. But on the basis of my own personal experience, what I can tell you is that if you use this particular technique, the elimination technique, in the right manner, अब देखिए भाई आप blind guesswork के basis पे use करेंगे तो obviously you will not get any return. But if you use this technique in the right manner, this can really help you to score quite well in the examination. And today I'll prove it. I'll prove it using the PYQs of 2023, which was one of the toughest prelims paper, and 25. And we will talk about the 4 important principles. Believe me, it is going to help you a lot. If you follow this, you can really help achieve good marks in the prelims exam, right? These are my credentials, so you can take a pause and look at the marks which I have secured. Except the attempt of 2021, I have consistently scored more than 100 marks in the GS1 paper of the prelims. Now, let's talk about the core idea. Okay, basis क्या है? Let's talk about a truth. The truth is that almost 100% of the aspirants who are writing the paper, they have some idea. They have some idea about some questions. ऐसा शायद कोई भी इंसान नहीं होगा जिसको कुछ भी ना आता हो, right? Then the other truth is that there would be absolutely no one, right? There are 0% chances कि भाई कोई ऐसा इंसान हो जिसको सब कुछ आता हो, right? So what I'm talking about is the approach of moderation, the approach of using your logic and reason. ठीक है? So आपको questions में देखना पड़ेगा कि भाई कौन सा ऐसा ऑप्शन है जो कि आसानी से एलिमिनेट हो सकता है, and then you will be having easier choices, right? And then you can finally reach out to the correct answer. Because understand that prelims is not just about memorization. Prelims is not just about knowledge. There are many knowledgeable people, but they're not able to secure their position. They're not able to qualify the prelims exam, primarily because they have a very rigid approach. So you need to have a flexible approach where you use different techniques, different methods. You use primarily your logic to eliminate most of the options and then reach to the correct answer. I hope it is clear. So what we'll be discussing today is the elimination architecture. So I'll talk about the 4 principles and using the PYQs of 23 and 24. Okay. Let's look at the very first principle. The first principle says that absolute language is a trap. ये एक trap है. This is not a rule. Whenever the UPSC is using absolute words, all, always, never, no, in most of the cases, you should give a look back. कि भाई क्या ये सही है? Is it even rational, right? Let's take an example. So we have this particular question from 2025 and it says, it talks about the unmanned aerial vehicles, right? With reference to the unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, consider the following statement. All types of UAVs can do vertical landing. All types of UAVs can do automated hovering. पहला अगर statement हम देखें, so we have, it's using the absolute word. It's saying all types of UAVs. We know that there are certain UAVs which basically use the conventional landing and takeoff. ठीक है? बहुत ही कम UAVs होते हैं which have this VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, right? So therefore this option you can easily eliminate. Then you have all types of UAVs can do automated hovering. Hovering क्या होता है? You must have seen the helicopter which stays at a particular stationary position in the air, right? So do you think that all UAVs can do that? Absolutely not, right? All types of UAVs can use battery only as a source of power supply. Now see, when we're talking about the battery, it's but obvious if the size of the UAV is small, definitely battery can be used, right? But if the size of the UAV is big, we have to use some other fuels. For example, we have the aviation turbine fuel, or we have petrol or diesel, right? So that can be used. So it's not, it doesn't match with the reason. If we are using the absolute terms like all types, all types, all types, so you can easily eliminate. How many of the above statements are correct? None. So the answer is automatically none. Even if you're not aware of the technicalities of what UAV is or how it works, you can easily get to the answer, right? Let's look at the second question. It says, consider the following statement. No virus can survive in ocean waters. See, viruses are something which have been there since time immemorial, right? And they exist in almost every environment, be it the mountains, be it the oceans. So absolutely this is incorrect. No virus can infect bacteria. देखिए, if you have a slight knowledge about the antimicrobial resistance, AMR आपने पढ़ा ही होगा, वहां पे there's a technique which we have been using. See, again, elimination technique जो use आप करेंगे, it has to be based on certain logic, reason, knowledge. ठीक है, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आप बिल्कुल बिना पढ़े एग्जाम में बैठ गए तो you can very easily eliminate. No, that's not possible. It's impractical. So this is only for those who have a sound basis in logic and reason and knowledge. Now, in the antimicrobial resistance, in order to combat the antimicrobial resistance, what we have been doing is we are using a particular technique known as the phages technique, right? Where the viruses are being used to kill the bacteria, right? Bacteriophages. So there are certain viruses which can definitely kill the bacteria and infect them, right? No virus can change the cellular transcriptional activity in the host cells. Every virus, if you have even a basic understanding of virus, it requires an host. ठीक है, host की जरूरत होती है. It can be a parasite or anything. Now, even if I am not aware of what is this transcriptional activity, what it is saying is कि भाई, it cannot do that. No virus can change the cellular transcriptional activity in the host. Obviously, it can do. Definitely it can do, right? So that is how it would induce the change. That is the work of a virus. So obviously in this case, what you'll have to understand is all three options, since they are absolute in nature, they are incorrect. I hope it is correct. Use some logic, use some reason. Let's go to the next set of questions. So we have marsupials. Statement 1 says marsupials are not naturally found in India. Okay. Now, what you'll have to understand is the word used here is not naturally found. So ये एक moderate statement है. If it is saying not naturally found, it means it can be true, right? Marsupials आपको पता होना चाहिए. They are basically the animals which have a pouched belly, right? For example, you must have seen kangaroos. So the growth and development takes place of the baby in the pouched belly of the mother. Those are the marsupials. Marsupials can thrive only in montane grasslands with no predators. Can thrive only in. See, this is again a statement which is absolute in nature. So this cannot be true. They can definitely survive. Obviously, predators नहीं होने चाहिए, but ज़रूरी थोड़ी है भाई grasslands में भी कर सकते हैं. We have in Australia, we have different grasslands over where we have a lot of kangaroos. So obviously the second statement is incorrect. That is how you'll have to understand. Not naturally found in India, even if you imagine, whenever we think about kangaroos, we imagine Australia, right? So we know that in India, we don't have these marsupials, we don't have kangaroos. So I hope it is clear. Let's go to the second statement, the second question, sorry. Consider the following statements. Some mushrooms have medicinal properties. Okay, now we all know कि भाई mushrooms जो होते हैं, these are fungi, right? And definitely mushrooms are a kind of an input in the food diet which act as supplement. ठीक है, तो they definitely help to the concerned person to basically add nutrients in the daily diets. So they have medicinal properties, definitely. They have, in some of the mushrooms, what you will find is they have the antibacterial properties. Some mushrooms have psychoactive properties. See, in the US, there is a kind of a mushroom, or in fact, even in the other parts, which have certain psychoactive. Ab psychoactive substance जो होता है, which can lead to hallucinations, right? A sort of a drug, right? That can be present in any food item. So ऐसा जरूरी थोड़ी है. यहाँ पे वो word क्या यूज कर रहा है? Some mushrooms. It is very much possible. Why not? Psychoactive properties. Some mushrooms have insecticidal properties. See, fungi have basically evolved, and they have evolved in order to protect and survive. What they have evolved is a technique to basically make sure that they can kill the insects if some insects are coming, and then feeding on them, definitely they can kill that. So they have developed the those pesticidal properties. So this is also correct. Some mushrooms can have bioluminescence. See, यहाँ जो word है वो है bioluminescence. So if an organic product, if an organic living being is emitting light on its own, then that is what is known as bioluminescence. Obviously it is possible, why not? We have so many plants, right, which have this particular property. And moreover, what you have to understand is यहाँ पे moderate word use हो रहे हैं. They're using some mushrooms again in the next and the fourth statement. So definitely all the statements are correct. I hope it is clear. So whenever you have the absolute language, please take a pause and see, is it even rational? Can we apply some logic and eliminate? Yes, you can do that. Let's talk about the second principle. UPSC uses partial familiarity to mislead you. Yes. UPSC would deliberately give you some sentences which you would think as correct, but they are not correct. Let's talk about this particular question. Which of the following are the sources of income for the Reserve Bank of India? Even if you have given a fair reading of what the functions of Reserve Bank of India are, you can very easily solve this particular question. Buying and selling of government bonds, बिल्कुल भाई. Open market operations पढ़ा होगा आपने, ठीक है, बहुत basic चीज़ है, बिल्कुल करता है. Buying and selling of foreign currency, yes. So it is the Reserve Bank of India which manages the forex, definitely. Then we have let's talk about the statement 5, printing and distributing the currency. Yes, it is the work of, according to the Reserve Bank of India Act of 1934. That is primarily, Reserve Bank of India is the issuer of the banknotes. Let's talk about the third statement, pension fund management. We all know that pension is an area which obviously the logic says that it would not be regulated by the Reserve Bank. We have the PFRDA, Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority, right? Let's talk about the fourth statement, lending to private companies. RBI के बारे में जब भी हम पढ़ते हैं, what we basically study is that RBI is a banker to the banks. It's not a banker to the companies. Look, it can lend to the private banks, but not to the companies. So over here, you can easily eliminate, right? Let's talk about the second question. Consider the following statements. India has joined the Mineral Security Partnership as a member. Now, if you have been in touch with the current affairs, you would very easily understand that yes, this is true. It is a US-led initiative जहाँ पे we are focusing upon the critical minerals in order to strengthen the supply chains of the critical minerals. India is a resource-rich country in all 30 critical minerals that it has identified. Is it even possible that India can have all minerals in its basket? Obviously not. So this is a statement which is incorrect. The Parliament in 2023 has amended the Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act, empowering the central government to exclusively auction the mining lease and composite licenses for certain critical minerals. Now, this is a confusing statement, but again, you can use the logic. We all know that कि भाई critical minerals जो हैं, they are gaining prominence, right? They are being used in various emerging technologies, be it the battery storage systems, the renewable energy technology, so many technologies. Therefore, the government has also come up with a National Critical Minerals Mission. We all know that. National Semiconductor Mission भी है. तो जाहिर सी बात है, this is an area where the central government would take a control, right? Even if you apply the logic, states won't take a control on this aspect. So the correct statement would become 1 and 3rd, right? See, again, I'm not having a complete idea. That is what I want to tell you कि भाई complete idea नहीं है मुझे इन questions में, but still I'm able to reach to the conclusion primarily because I'm using some logic, I'm using some reason, right? Let's talk about the other questions. Let's say it says, consider the investments in the following assets. We have brand recognition, inventory, intellectual property, mailing list of clients. How many of the above are considered as intangible investments? देखिए बहुत सिंपल सा है. You must be aware of what is tangible and what is intangible. What you can touch is tangible and what you cannot touch, it is intangible. आपके thoughts हो गए, those are intangible, right? Brand recognition. We have certain brands, right? We have the trademarks. Obviously, it's an intangible asset. Then intellectual property, whatever research you're doing, whatever discovery you're doing, that is an intangible property. Mailing list of clients, obviously it's an intangible. Inventory का मतलब क्या होता है? आप लोगों ने कभी भी, whenever, even if you give a slight look at this, inventory is something which is a set of products or items which I have. क्या क्या मैन्युफैक्चर्ड आइटम्स मेरे पास हैं, क्या क्या रोलिंग स्टॉक मेरे पास है. सो दिस इज समथिंग विच इज टेंजिबल, राइट? ऑब्वियसली, सो यू कैन ईजिली एलिमिनेट यहाँ पे. तो आपको समझना पड़ेगा कि भाई it is trying to confuse you. UPSC would always try to confuse you. Use some logic and you can easily manage. Now see, there have been two questions which have come from the same topic, which is the green hydrogen. With reference to the green hydrogen, consider the following statement. Green hydrogen, we all know that it is a cleaner alternative to conventional fuels, and that is the reason we have been focusing upon that. It can be used directly as a fuel for internal combustion. We all know that we are thinking to switch. We are thinking to make sure that we use green hydrogen as a fuel for transport. तो जाहिर सी बात है कि भाई green hydrogen can be used in two ways. It can either be used in internal combustion engines or it can be also used in fuel cells, right? So in both ways you can use that. It can be blended with natural gas and used as fuel for heat or power generation. The word which is being used is it can. Why not? Definitely you can do that. It can be used in hydrogen fuel cell to run vehicles. Yes, as I told you, either you can use in the internal combustion engines or you can use in the fuel cells. So over here, all the three statements are correct, right? आप imagine करिए ना कि भाई why you are coming up with the green hydrogen, so that you can have more cleaner form of energy source, right? Next we have, consider the following heavy industries: fertilizer plants, oil refineries, steel plants. Very simple question. Green hydrogen is expected to play a significant role in decarbonizing how many of the above? Whenever we are talking about the heat requirements of these industries, green hydrogen can be a very cleaner alternative. So obviously in all these three places we can basically use green hydrogen. So that is how you'll have to understand. देखिए ये सब questions ऐसे हैं जहां पे आपको absolute idea नहीं होगा, but if you apply some different logic, if you apply some reason, if you apply some knowledge which you have gained from other parts, definitely you can solve that. Coming to the third principle, कि भाई क्वेश्चंस अगर आ रहे हैं किसी इंस्टीट्यूशन पे, किसी यूएन बॉडी पे, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पे, सो वहां पे किसी पॉलिसी पे, इफ गवर्नमेंट हैज कम विद अ पर्टिकुलर पॉलिसी, please understand, please see whether that, ask yourself whether that body is even capable of doing it, whether that policy is even rational. जो क्वेश्चन में लिखा हुआ है, is it even rational? Don't just go into the facts, because अगर आप facts पढ़ने लग गए, there are so many schemes, so many bodies, it's going to be very, very difficult. Let's talk about the very first question. Which one of the following statements best reflects the chief purpose of the constitution of a country? It determines the objectives for making of necessary laws. So if you just look at this particular statement, देखिए statement से पहले what we'll have to understand is constitution किसी भी country का, it's the supreme law. It's a supreme law of the land, right? It won't just talk about, इस statement का जो perspective है वो बहुत narrow है. Please understand. It's just talking about very few laws. It determines the objective for making the necessary laws. Is it so? No. It also talks about, constitution also talks about various bodies, the rights of the people, right? It enables the creation of political offices and a government. Okay. Is it only the function of a constitution? No, that is not, because it also talks about the rights and other things. Let's talk about statement D. It secures social justice, social equality, and social security. So this is only a rights-based framework. It's not talking about the other thing. So obviously it is incorrect. It defines and limits the power of the government. Yes. Bhai, government kaise banegi? How the government would be formed? And what functions the government would have? What rights the people would have? That would be defined. Rights kaise aa gaya yahan par? Because I'm talking about the limits. And whenever I'm talking about the limits which are imposed on the government, it obviously means I'm talking about the rights of the people. I hope it is clear, right? That is how you reach to the conclusion. Let's talk about this. Consider the following statement about Rashtriya Gokul Mission. Even if you have a basic idea about what Gokul is all about, Gokul is a place where you have the sheltering of the cows, right? It's the cow pen. So you can very easily understand this particular question. It is important. पढ़ के देखते हैं कि is it easy or not? It is important for the upliftment of the rural poor, as majority of the low producing indigenous animals are with the small and marginal farmers and landless laborers. Absolutely correct. बिल्कुल rational चीज है that when we are talking about the Rashtriya Gokul Mission, if you are even aware of what Gokul is all about, even if you imagine it, you will have a picture of a rural background. So this is but obvious, where you have the majority of the small and marginal farmers. It was initiated to promote the indigenous cattle and buffalo rearing and conservation in a scientific and holistic manner. Yes, absolutely true. Because in order to promote the genetic diversity, in order to make sure that whatever genetic diversity we have, whatever genes we have with respect to the cattle, they are of superior nature, right? So obviously both statement would be correct. अगर आपको complete idea भी नहीं है about the objectives of this particular mission, you can still mark the correct answer, because both these statements, they look rational and objective, right? Let's then talk about the other question. Invasive species specialist group develops the global invasive species database belongs to which one of the following organizations? Now see, I'm talking about the invasive species. यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा हम लोग क्वेश्चन करते हैं अपने आप को. I'm talking about the invasive species. And specifically, an invasive species, if you have read about it, it's one of the primary concerns as far as the diversity is concerned, as far as the biodiversity is concerned. Okay, this is one of the greatest challenges to biodiversity. When we talk about the organization which can come up with a particular study on this, let's talk about the UNEP. Now, UNEP, it's but obvious that this is an organization which has a very broad mandate. ठीक है, हो सकता है कि ये इस पे एक रिपोर्ट लेके आए, but again, this is an organization which works in various dimensions, including the climate change also, right? Then we have United Nations World Commission for Environment and Development. If you have read the environment part, you will understand that this was the basis for the 1992 Rio Summit, right? This particular commission. Now, again, the very objective is based on sustainability, not it's but obvious that this won't be talking about the invasive species. Worldwide Fund for Nature. You must have seen the logo of this particular organization, which has the giant panda on it. This is based, and the very objective is the conservation of the animals, right? So obviously, this won't be talking about the invasive species. Once I talk about the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, it is but obvious that IUCN focuses upon the conservation of plant and animal species. It comes out with the list of the endangered, critically endangered, threatened species. So this is but obvious that it would talk about the conservation of biodiversity. And when I'm talking about the conservation of biodiversity, one of the greatest challenges is invasive alien species. So this can be the most probable. And yes, this is the answer. That is how you use your logic. यहाँ पर आपने थोड़ा सा intuition लगाया, थोड़ा सा logic लगाया. You went into the background of the bodies and then you came to exact answer. Let's talk about the next question. In India, the prisons are managed by the state governments with their own rules and regulations for the day-to-day administration of prisons. We all know that law and order is a state subject. It's in the state list. Prison is also mentioned in the very state list, right? In India, prisons are governed by the Prisons Act of 1894, which expressly kept the subject of prisons in the control of provincial governments. Now, see, this is a pre-independence act. We can very easily recognize this. And I have told you that according to the constitution, we have law and order, and we have the prisons as a part of the state list. Now, definitely the Ministry of Home Affairs, it has come with various programs and schemes for the promotion or the making of the robust infrastructure for the prisons. But again, what you'll have to understand is that this is a particular state subject, right? And MHA has also come up with the model prison law, right? Which it has asked various states to basically adopt. So यहाँ से क्या पता चलता है? Yes, this is a pre-independence act, but again, the power with respect to the administration of prisons lie with the states. So both these statements are correct. That is how you use some logic and reach to the correct statement. The last principle is that of the UPSC wants you to eliminate. Yes, it is in a way forcing you to eliminate. If you are not eliminating, it would be very difficult to reach to the correct answer. Let's talk about this. Without the atmosphere, the temperature would be well below freezing point everywhere on the Earth's surface. If you give a superficial reading, you will feel that this statement is correct. लेकिन थोड़ा सा अप्लाई करते हैं. We have the clouds, right? We have the air. We have the clouds which basically give the albedo effect. You must be aware of that. Which basically reflect these, once you have the sunlight coming, it reflects the sunlight, and that is one of the reasons that we have the ambient conditions of living, right? So agar hamare paas, if we'll not have the atmosphere, if we'll not have the air, if we'll not have the clouds, then the temperatures would be soaring high. It would be very hot. It would not be possible to live, right? So the first statement is automatically incorrect. Heat absorbed and trapped by the atmosphere maintains our planet's average temperature. Yes, you must have studied about the heat budget. where we have the incoming rays, the outgoing rays, there's a heat budget which is maintained. Yes, so during the daytime, we have the absorption of heat. During the night, we have the escaping of the heat. This is very natural. Atmosphere gases like carbon dioxide are particularly good at absorbing and trapping the radiation. Yes, we have the greenhouse gases. We all know that we have methane, we have CO2. So this is but correct. So first statement, and if you look at the first statement, it is basically contradicting the second statement. And second is obviously correct. So the correct answer would be second and third. I have not used too many of the technicalities of geography. I'm just using basic knowledge of science, and that is how I derive my answer. Let's talk about the next question. With reference to the Indian polity, consider the following statement. An ordinance can amend any central act. Okay, yes, we all know that. We have 123. Definitely it can do so. An ordinance can abridge a fundamental right. Even if you have a basic understanding of Article 13, जो कि starting में सब लोग polity में पढ़ते हैं. It talks about what a law is, and it also says that a law includes the ordinance, yes, and it very clearly says that any law cannot abridge the fundamental right. So this is but obvious, it's incorrect. An ordinance can come into effect from a backdate. Yes, why not? We have the retrospective legislations. हो सकता है, बिल्कुल हो सकता है. So we have the correct answer as 1 and 3rd. So even if you eliminate second, you can very easily reach out to the option, because we have second over here, we have second over here, and then we have second over here. So 1 and 3rd is the correct answer. I hope it is clear, right? Let's talk about the next question. We have the self-help group program was originally initiated by the State Bank of India. Now it is but obvious कि भाई self-help group program जो है वो एक, this is a scheduled commercial bank. It is not possible that the State Bank would come with this particular self-help group program. No. We all know that if you have gone through the SEVA, the work of SEVA, Self-Employment Women Organization Association by Ila Bhatt, and we have also studied about NABARD, right? So ये सब organizations हैं जिनके basis पे we had the self-help group bank linkage program. So it was primarily NABARD, National Bank for Rural Development, Agriculture and Rural Development. It's not the State Bank of India. In a self-help group, all members of a group take responsibility for a loan that an individual member takes. Yes, it is based upon the mutual, relations. It's based upon the consent of all the stakeholders which are present. That is the very basis of a self-help group. The regional rural banks and the scheduled commercial banks support the self-help groups. Yes, it is primarily the RRBs. That is a very objective to basically make sure to promote these self-help groups so that they can basically come with the self-employment opportunities, right, for the people. So the second and third statement is correct. So how many of the above statements are correct? Only 2. Let's talk about the next question, and quite interesting. Recently, all the countries of the United Nations have adopted the first ever Compact for International Migration, the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration. पहली बात तो यहाँ पे it's using the word all countries. So this is somewhat which is extreme, right? Next, it's talking about the international migration. So this is somewhat I have to keep in mind. Since this is an extreme statement, I would try to obviously avoid it. The objectives and commitments stated in the GCM are binding on the UN member countries. We all know that. If all countries have come, it is but obvious that it would not be binding, right? And there are very few binding commitments which are there in international relations, right? So binding is something which is going to be very difficult. It's going to affect the sovereignty of the countries, and therefore countries would not want to have a binding mandate on them. The GCM addresses the internal migration or internally displaced people also in its objective. It's the Global Compact on Migration. When we are talking about the internal migration, just imagine, you have people going from Bihar to Maharashtra or from the other parts of the country. Can any other international body decide what is going to be the internal migration? Obviously not. So it's only talking about the international. So the first statement, obviously it's incorrect. Second, yes, it's binding, so obviously it's incorrect. Third, it cannot be true. It cannot be true. So how many of the above statements are correct? None. So you can very easily, using some logic, you can definitely reach out to this particular answer. See, I'm not saying that all questions are the ones where you'll have to use it, but yes, in majority of the questions you'll have to do. If you are not doing, it's going to be difficult. Why most students fail despite studying? The very first is because they use the PYQs for knowledge. Sir, we have covered so many PYQs, but we are not able to enhance the marks. Primarily because कि भाई आप सिर्फ knowledge के लिए पढ़ रहे हैं. No, you're not analyzing them. See what is the pattern. See what type of questions. are coming. How you can use logic, that is what you'll have to understand. They only focus upon the answer. They're focusing upon the content enrichment. They're not focusing upon the logic. And they are चेसिंग दी कवरेज कि सर 10 साल के क्वेश्चंस कर लिए. अरे भाई 10 साल के कर लिए अच्छी बात है, बट ट्राई टू फोकस. आई एम सेइंग इवन इफ यू डू लास्ट 5 years, दैट्स गोइंग टू बी वेरी हेल्पफुल. एंड they're not focusing upon the pattern देखो भाई किस तरह के क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं. दैट इज हाउ you'll be able to develop more, that kind of smart thinking. See, again, understand, in the UPSC it's not just about the hard work. I have always said that it's also about the smart work. You cannot literally study everything under the sun. You'll have to go with a proper smart work where you use some logic, you use some reason, you use some basic understanding. कहते हैं ना कि भाई for example we have the principles of natural law, so भाई उसको apply करो. And there are many students who are risk averse, risks नहीं लेते. 50 questions attempt कर रहे हैं, 55 कर रहे हैं. Obviously the chances of getting most of the questions would be less, so therefore they score the less marks and they're not able to cross that cutoff cross नहीं कर पाते. So it's very difficult. What I would say is try to practice, and as I have told, using the PYQs, use some logic. Definitely this is going to help you in many questions. Finally, what I would say is UPSC is not just about knowledge. Please understand, it's more about the smartness. There are many knowledgeable people, they're very intelligent people, but even they are not able to qualify the examination. They qualify the prelims examination in their 1, 2 or 3 attempts, right? So it's more about the smartness, less about the knowledge. And yes, if you have liked this particular initiative, you can also share with your friends, the serious aspirants. We have the IS Track channel. This is a QR code. You can definitely join it. In a few days from now, I'm thinking to come up with the prelims questions. You can just go through the channel and see. There have been a particular program what I started as a prelims short. It's a completely free initiative where I gave quality questions. I'll be soon starting with that. So join the IS Track channel. It's going to help you a lot. All the very best. And yes, if you think that I should come with more analysis of the previous year's questions, I can do so, but I would need to hear you first. I hope it is clear. All the very best. Thank you so much.